disappointing that to this day in this country we still have people internalising that fear and that sense of failure as their fault. Neurodivergent people, people who learn differently, people who maybe grasp things a little bit slower than other people, blame themselves, rather than putting the blame where it should be, which is with the system that let them down.
My son went off to school today, last day of the autumn term in year 11, and he gets to watch a film today because he has had no time off sick, and that's how this school operates. You get a reward for not being ill. One girl who studies really hard had 2 lessons off for a dentist appointment and doesn't get to watch the film today. What are we bringing up our kids to be like? This is just horrendous.
So, I'm an ex-teacher and I'm married to a teacher, and this is why we home educate. Really, really simple answer. We home educate because we can. We live in the UK where it's totally legal to home educate. So when our children got to school age...
Education,
send them to school.
education, education.
But school in the
Yes,
UK
I'm old enough to remember that quote like it was yesterday from you-know-who in the 1990s.
then
I
you are
fell
free
for
to do
it,
so.
and I bet
Don't
many
have
of
to
you
be a
watching this
qualified
did
teacher to
too.
teach your own
Never again.
So what that means is, if you feel as a parent that you can offer your child a better education at home than they would receive in the school system, then you are free to do so. If your child's already registered in a school, then you will have to send a letter to deregister them. But if they haven't been registered at school and they're under school statutory age, then you don't have to do anything. You carry on as you are. So feel free to follow me for more home ed chat and let me know in the comments if you're interested in home ed or if you already home ed.
Just had a brilliant conversation with a head teacher just about what's going on in UK schools at the moment, and it's kind of the same story at pretty much every school I go to at the moment. She said the government gave them 200k less this year than they did last year funding, so they can't really afford TAs, and what I can see is the Senko is through the roof. The amount of children who can't sit still, who can't focus, who kind of have additional needs which just aren't being met. And the head basically said, well, there's a 3-year waiting list for the government, for them to kind of get assessed. So basically you've got a whole system where, because they're not being assessed, they can't give extra support. Or extra funding. So basically the poor teachers have kids spinning around, running around, trying to teach 30 other children with no money. Most teachers are saying to me at the moment, I'm buying pens, I'm buying paper, I'm buying all the resources out of my own pocket, and as we know, they're not exactly paid that well. So the teachers are doing an awesome job, but they're just firefighting at the moment. So yeah, every school saying, oh, we're 50, 60, 70, 80k in deficit this year, got no money, and basically, yeah, they're in pretty bad way. They said the sports premium is kind of still ring fence, but they're not giving any kind of measure whether it's going to be next year or not, or whether it's going to be cut. So they're not spending any money. Which obviously is fine, but it just means that the kids aren't getting the best education. They're not getting all the things that they can need, and the support they can really get.
In my day, we had tough rules and discipline, but it worked out and we were happy. Now they have everything and, ironically, nothing. Bad teachers and worse parents. I just feel sorry for the children in all this.
Not to accept the complaint. Good afternoon. So this is a completely different video to anything we usually post on here. I've wanted to do this for so long because being that our following is predominantly families, parents, I was hoping somebody could help, because we've had this situation ongoing for coming up to about 6 months now, and I feel like I'm at the end of my tether, and it's just been made worse as well. Our eldest son started high school in September. The high school is in a village which is about 10, I'm gonna say 15 minutes away, because in summer it's an absolute nightmare to get through. Our other two children are in an opposite direction, about 7 minutes away, maybe a little bit longer. Being that we live so rurally, there just isn't really, we don't even have a shop, like there's just nothing here. So we do have to travel to take the kids to school. One of the things that really appealed to us about the high school that he was going to was that because there is no bus service for the children in our village, they put on a taxi and all the kids get in this taxi. So we've known about this for years. We've always heard really good things. The taxi firm is like literally opposite our house. Nobody had any issues at all. Unfortunately, last year they decided to go with a different company. Apparently they were trying to save money. And we have had loads of problems, but I'm not going to go into too many details. I'm not going to disclose who the company is, but not good enough. I have had bad experiences in taxis, which I'm sure a lot of people probably have. But obviously when it comes to your child, of course, you are extra cautious. At one point, I was on the phone to the council every single day. And when I tell you, they could not give a One of the more concerning things for us was that we were told that a specific company would be picking Jaden up. There was other ones turning up, although one of them was under that umbrella. The other ones were not, and some of them were unmarked. And I questioned the council about this, and I said I wanted a list of all of the names of the taxi services that would pick him up, and I've never had that. They have never disclosed to me who was supposed to be picking my son up. We don't have any pavements, we don't even have street lights, there's like nothing here. And the council basically said that they wanted him to meet at this meeting point, which I was not comfortable with him walking to because it just wasn't safe enough. This also made no sense to me whatsoever because they actually drive past our house to get to this meeting point twice. In one of the very few occasions where they did actually email me back, they told me that they were going to assess the route, whatever that means. I'm assuming it was on Google Maps. I emailed him back and I asked him what time he assessed this route, and I have not heard anything since. I can't tell you how many times we have been in contact. We have rung them, we have emailed them. I've even gone through complaints and they're choosing not to accept the complaint. I've even been in contact with the local MP. That was pointless because he didn't give a either. It has had an impact on my son's attendance. With me getting the other two to school and work, I haven't been able to get him on time. We all know how much the council love attendance, so I can't understand why they're not actively trying to help this situation. But then money's not involved. And as if that is not enough, my daughter now hasn't got into the same school as my son. So basically, I need to be in 2 different places at once. This lovely little village school that my son has attended and my eldest son attended to, and my daughter goes to the preschool.
I have heard many children are unable to even read or write nowadays. I bad mix between everything we have seen and poor standards. Don't we realise that this is what is going to be running the country in the future? It doesn't bear thinking about.
To do in this school. Before Year 7s even start the first term, they have to attend what is called a 1-week military boot camp, where they are forced to learn the rules and regulations of the school and what will happen if they don't follow them. Talking is forbidden in corridors. You're only allowed to speak to another pupil with permission from a teacher. When kids enter classrooms, they have 10 seconds to get out their books and have them ready on the desk, or they get a detention. When it comes to lunchtime, pupils have to sit around tables of 6 with a teacher at the head of each table. The pupils then serve the teacher, and then they have to do the cleaning up. There's no cleaners. The kids do it in this school. And before they're allowed to leave the canteen, they have to spend 5 minutes thanking somebody, followed by 2 claps from everyone
claims they don't want pupils being distracted by looking at themselves. Food or drink from home is forbidden, and if any teacher finds a child that has brought something in from home, they are issued a detention which can last up to 5 hours. Up to 5 hours of detention can be given for forgetting a pen, if the teacher thinks you are slouching, or if you attempt to even look out of the window. Students are also given enough homework to cover the full weekend. And if a student is so much as 30 seconds late, even if it's through no fault of their own, they are issued a detention which again can last up to 5 hours. And the head teacher is proud that ex-servicemen who have previously served in the British Army have compared this school to the army itself. This is not a school, it is a prison. Why the hell any parent would send their child to somewhere like this is beyond me.
This is really shocking. There are schools in England that could collapse at any point.
No, not shocking at all. Not shocking at all, because this is what happens when you have 13 years of a Conservative government. They're crashing the NHS, crashing the education system. They're literally crashing everything. We've been asset stripped. Academy chains, schools, land, who owns them? Their mates. Yep. This is full-on destruction of everything we hold dear. That's what I feel. Anyone else? They've ruined everything.
Schools across the UK are literally at risk of collapsing. And no, this isn't a video about how the Tories are underfunding schools. Well, I guess it is actually. No, it's about the fact that schools are literally at risk of crumbling. Schools are literally being forced to close their buildings or partially close the buildings due to a certain type of risky concrete which has been found and used across schools in the UK called RAAC. Imagine being a parent and being told that your child's school is at risk of dangerous concrete collapses. Yeah, it's absolutely mental. At least 100 schools are partly affected by the use of this concrete, and as it says here, 24 schools have been forced to fully close. And to make matters even worse, the schools or parts of their buildings could be closed until 2025. It really makes you think, how the hell did this happen? Who's responsible for this? And is this just another example of Tory failure?
So I'm wondering if anybody has been in this situation. I read a headline recently saying that schools are deliberately trying to get rid of children with additional learning needs, or I think it was an English article actually, so I think it might have said special educational needs. And you can be cynical about the article if you want to, but it happened around the same time as I felt that had happened to my children. And I just wondered how many other people have kind of been under this kind of experience. Basically what had happened with my children is that in their school, they had a new head. We had asked for help for our daughter and we'd been completely ignored. Our son managed to go in third day of term, had a really bad experience. I'm not going to go into the details, but we sent a complaint to the school. They spent months dealing with it and in the end just sent us a list of excuses. And we never heard anything from the teacher. Or the head teacher or anything. We only ever heard from the school governor, and that was very intermittent. They were in no hurry to kind of sort it out. And we'd had multiple emails that had just been completely ignored by the head and by the teachers. And we decided enough was enough and we deregistered our children. And when I had read about lots of people deregistering, the vast majority, I think, of people that I'd read, the experience was that the school emailed back and said, we need to have a meeting about this. We need to try and help you in some way. We're not very keen on you homeschooling or home educating, and kind of trying to like fight it really. We sent an email and within an hour, the head teacher had said, yeah, I've taken them off the register.
So it was blatantly clear that she did not want my children in her school. She did not want my children who needed extra support in her school. And going by the fact that my son's support had been taken off him purely for budgeting reasons, I'm going to assume that she wanted my children out purely for budgeting reasons. Probably easier for her not to have children with additional learning needs. So they were massively discriminated against, and I just wondered if anybody else had been in this situation. Now, don't get me wrong, before I start getting comments, this is not the situation in every school, and actually my reflections over the last few months have been the vast differences in schools. I know somebody, a very close personal friend, who their school has been extremely supportive, and the teachers have been absolutely amazing, and that's in the same geographical area that I live in. So and it baffles me that we have this ALN code in Wales, and we have all this guidance for local authorities from the Welsh Government, and apparently there's funding, although I don't think there's enough funding. And, you know, the ALN code is all about finding early help for children to help them into the schooling system. And then you've just got these massive, massive variety of discrepancies and treatment. And so you've got one school who's just get rid of them. And another one who's really, really supportive. And this is fundamentally the massive problem, is the massive inconsistencies in help that's available, and support that's available. And I find from the stories that I've read that the most supportive teachers are ones who have either personal experience or they've had experience of neurodiversity in the past. And yeah, so it's not really to do with, then definitely there's not enough training for staff, for TAs, for support staff, for all school staff at all. It very much relies on people having a personal experience, I think. So yeah, I just wondered if anybody else had that kind of situation where they recognised the school was glad to see the back of them.
Has the UK fallen? Because it bloody well as hell sure feels like it, doesn't it? Schools are broken, NHS on its knees, families are crumbling, kids are raising themselves on bloody TikTok while the parents are drowning in stress and debt. You can't get a doctor's appointment, but you can get fined for not dragging your autistic kid into school when they're having a meltdown. Where's the support? Where's the leadership? Where's the fight? Let me remind you, before World War II, this country was run by the rich, for the rich. The poor had nothing. But when the war ended, our grandparents fought to build something better. The NHS, council housing, proper public services. They didn't sit back. They got organised. They made noise and demanded change. Now look at us. Everything they built is being stripped away, and we're so burnt out and distracted. Netflix, scrolling, try and survive. We didn't even realise how bad things are getting. We're being conditioned to stay silent, accept less and settle for crumbs. But I'm telling you, this is just the beginning. If we don't stand up now, there'll be nothing left for our kids. You want change, you want justice, you want a future that works for families, then it's time for us all to wake up, because no one is coming to save us but us. We've been through years of trying to get help for our children that are disabled, and it's just no one's interested, no one's bothered. You have to know your rights in the legal system. So we created askellie.co.uk, which is a website to help families that are struggling to get the advice they need. So go and check that out, and also, if you feel the same, leave a message in the comments.
Champion home education on this account, of course. Obviously, this is a home education account. I'm going to talk about the positives. I'm going to talk about the reasons why I think it's so positive for a lot of families. But I also want to talk and try and use this platform to raise awareness of why I am not sending my child to school, and why I think the education system in this country is broken. Something huge needs to change. It needs to be rebuilt back, step by step and brick by brick. I'm hoping this video will reach some people, because I get a lot of negative comments on my posts. People seem to like seeking out home education accounts, and disagreeing with them in the comments. So hopefully they'll see this and they'll see some of the reasons why we're home educating and why a lot of people choose to home educate. Lots of reasons why I think the system is broken. I'm just going to give you some real life examples from when I was actually a teacher. I mean, I left teaching 4 years ago. Like I said, I'm still involved in education because I private tutor children, but I'm not in the classroom anymore. But this is from even 4 years ago, and I know that since then things have got significantly worse because funding has dropped even further. Class sizes have increased as a result. You know, a lot of classes don't have teaching assistants anymore. And for the record, I know there will be lots and lots of children who do like going to school. I know that, you know, and thank God there are some children who like going to school. But it's not the case for everyone. And I think, you know, if you have a child who enjoys going to school, that's great. That is great for you. But not everybody is so lucky. Not everybody has the same experience. I think I kind of realised the system was broken when we were forcing children who could barely read 2 sentences fluently and independently to do the same assessment as all of their peers. Same reading comprehension assessment as all of their peers, because that was the done thing that you had to do. They have to do the assessment, even though you know full well that they cannot access even the very beginning of that assessment. No, they have to do it because that's the rules. What distress does that cause that child? Having to demote things like art and music and drama because there's just no time in the curriculum. We had to shoehorn them into these like days across a half term. So you would do like a day of music every half term, but that day wouldn't even be like a full day once you take lunch out of it and break out of it and all the little stop-start bits that you have in between. So you would do probably like 3 hours of music every half term. Same with the other subjects that I mentioned, because there's far too much maths and English being crammed in. And because it's being crammed in, none of it's actually being taught properly, and none of it's actually going into children's heads. It's just being skimmed over because we have so much to fit in. Parents are being asked for more and more and more voluntary contributions for things like trips, for things like visits, for people coming into the school, for all sorts of things. Now, I know that trips have always been something that parents have paid for. I understand that. It didn't used to cost as much as they used to. Schools used to get an element of funding towards trips. That funding's all been stripped away. So parents are being asked for more and more, and they're told it's voluntary because legally you cannot ask for it to not be voluntary. But if they aren't received, then it doesn't go ahead. So is it voluntary? There's obviously the whole EHCP situation going on right now, which obviously isn't in place yet, but to even get an EHCP is really hard. And there are some children who just don't qualify for an EHCP, and they're getting left behind. They're getting left behind because there's only one teacher in the classroom. And like I said, a lot of classes now don't have a TA. So there's one adult, one teacher in the classroom for often 30 plus children. How does that work? I don't get it. There is an SEN crisis in this country right now. I mean, it's only a few reasons. It's enough, but that's only a few reasons. I have many, many more. The system's broken. That's literally it, and I feel so sad about it. I feel like these children have one childhood. You have one childhood, and a lot of these children are spending it feeling stressed, anxious, not wanting to go into school, not being catered for at school. And this is not bashing teachers or teaching staff, because like I said, I was one. I know how hard it was back then, and it's probably doubled since then. Teachers are not given enough funding, they're not given enough support, they're not given enough practical resources, they're having to pay for things out of their own money, and it's a thankless job. It's a thankless job. The media hate them, the government hate them. The government try and get people to like them, but actually they end up turning the media against them. It's just, it's a thankless job. So just a few reasons why I will not be sending my child into school, because I've been on the inside and I know what it's like. And even now I'm on the outside, I can still see it happening. Thought there, before you go onto a home educator's profile and start spouting a load of BS and vile comments about this, that and the other, maybe consider their reasons for home educating, and that actually school isn't the kind of paradise that you maybe make it out to be.
So many people ask me about whether the girls will be doing their qualifications like their GCSEs and everything else in higher education. Now, our eldest is only 10 at the moment, but it is something we have thought about, and that is why we're sticking in with the English curriculum at the moment, whether they want to jump back in. But it's something that I want to just touch on today, because I think it's absolutely bonkers that we think at 16 years old that you put yourself in for your GCSEs and that is your only one shot to be able to get those qualifications, because when you get older you realise that is not your one shot to gain those qualifications. You can do your GCSEs at any time. It doesn't mean if you fail them that you cannot retake them later on in life. If you don't take them at that time, you can take them later on. And if the career that you want means that you need those GCSEs to go up into higher education, you can do them at any point of your life. But you do not realise that when you're in the school system. When you're 16 and you're going through puberty and you've got the social pressures around you, and then you've got to just have this exam. I remember the English exam being 3.5 hours long, and there's so much pressure on you to just prove how much you have learned in that time. It does not mean that that shows any worth at all to what your knowledge actually is or what you're going to do within the rest of your life. I know so many people that followed their career path of doing their GCSEs, going into their A-levels, then going into university, then going into that career that they desired, and then realising a couple of years later it's not actually the career that they want, and they take a career change, meaning you go and gain other qualifications for a different career. So my point today is that when you're 16 and doing your GCSEs, that is not the only time, and there's so many people later on in life that change what they're doing and manage to get those qualifications. It's not the be-all and end-all getting your GCSEs.
Morning. Yesterday I did a TikTok about the new government campaign that you may have seen on TikTok. Lots of other people who I follow have been putting posts up about it. There was one by Home Ed Amy, which she asked people to comment or stitch about their experiences of the schooling system. I couldn't stitch it, so I'm just going to do this video and then at Home Ed Amy into this. So the government have put up a advertising campaign basically saying moments matter, attendance matters. I've done videos about attendance matters propaganda across social media before by various councils, and this one is just awful. It says, oh, one of them says, oh, she was worried about school this morning, but look at her now. He had a runny nose this morning, but look at him now, with all these happy smiley children in school. It's completely just disregarding what is actually going on in our schooling system. So there are record numbers of school absences across our schooling system in England, Wales, Scotland, and for all I know, Northern Ireland. And instead of the government looking into why that might be and linking that up with the ALN reform petition and protest and the SEND reform petition and various protests, they've just decided to ignore all of that and just thrown money at like a campaign. Oh, let's just put a load of posters together of some happy kids. That'll do. That'll get our kids back to school. And I've said this before when I've seen other posters around, that is not going to make people go back to school. You are not dealing with the issue. A high percentage of children who struggle to attend school are neurodivergent, and there is not the support in our schooling systems across the UK for children who are neurodivergent. In my case, I have 2 children who I've now deregistered, and they're now home educated, and that was my post yesterday, was showing how much better my girl is now that she is home educated. My priority for my children is their mental health, and they were not being supported in school. My son was denied extra support for a very long time. Then he had support for 2 months, and then for budgeting reasons, everything was taken off him. Absolutely everything was taken off him. And he could no longer attend school. He couldn't cope with the environment. And the school were more than happy to see the back of us
They didn't want to know. With my daughter, she was self-harming in school. She was 7 years old. No child should be so stressed out in school that they're self-harming. Nothing was put in place apart from an elastic band for her to use in case she wanted to hit something or bite herself. She could ping an elastic band instead. Then in her new school, because we moved her, we asked for support, we asked for an IDP, we asked for referrals. We were completely ignored, completely, by the school, by the head, by the Elenco, completely ignored. So we took her out. We're really privileged that we can have both our children home and home educate them. We're really lucky. I know that. That is not the case for the vast majority of people. And I don't know when this government is going to start listening, either the Welsh government or the UK government. And what's really worrying is then the Labour government, now who want to be voted in, have also stated that attendance matters and we should fine parents, and they are using the usual parent blame. And I've also done a post about an article that was talking about how there's low attendance because there's not enough PE, and how breakfast clubs will encourage attendance. Again, nobody is actually addressing the issue. The Labour government isn't, Conservative government isn't, the Welsh government isn't. I don't know how long they can carry on doing this and ignoring everybody. So if you have been affected or your children have been affected, please join either the Send.
I know my viewers are fully literate, so if you want you can subscribe and like this video. Because I'm hitting some home truths, I doubt this video will get priority, so help an old man out and spread the word. See all of you again in the next video. Cheerio.